Welcome to the Chasing Spirituality podcast. I'm your host, Megan, and I'm so excited that you're joining me today. Each episode is full of heartfelt and expansive content that will really help you expand your consciousness and grow as a person. I created this podcast because I wanted to share my own personal experiences on my spiritual journey, but I also wanted to meet others and have them share what they've been through and how they've gotten to where they are today. If you haven't done so already, it would really mean a lot to me if you could rate and review the podcast. This really helps the podcast grow and reach more people, but it also allows me to get more guests on the show. Now on to today's topic. In this week's rerun episode, I'm interviewing my husband, Myles. This was the 50th episode that was released earlier this year, and it is a really special and important episode to me. So I hope that you enjoy it. Okay, so I have Myles Jones with me here today. How are you doing, Myles?
You're doing great.
Yeah, so Myles is going to really just talk today about some really interesting but cool experiences he has with dreams. And I've heard a lot of these stories already, and I find them really fascinating. So we came up with the idea to share them on the podcast. So, Myles, I guess to start, why don't you begin by telling us like one of your favorite experiences that you've had through dream work or dream travel?
Well, I guess it kind of just started a lot when I was a kid, just kind of going to dreams, and but I was still conscious and kind of aware that it was a dream the entire time. And I never really thought anything of it until kind of, looking into, the spiritual community and things like that. And, understanding that they may be lucid dreams or astral travel. But that's just kind of where it started. So it started off with just being neat dreams that I would have often, and I'd be able to kind of control where I go and kind of what happens in them, instead of just those weird things that happen in dreams. But recently, getting in touch with a spiritual community, I realized that there's more to it. And now being older, I've had several of them where there was intentions of helping people. So some of my, I guess, favorite dreams is when I'm able to help people. One in particular, I helped a man from committing suicide and kind of saved him from that. He was going to, jump, and, talked him down, but it wasn't really talking. I'll get, I guess, more about that a little bit later, but and another one, I was helping a person with identity crisis, which that one's probably one of the more vivid ones that I, can kind of remember after, waking up in this reality, I guess we'll say. So that's probably the one that we'll probably talk about the most.
Yeah, why don't we just start there? Why don't you start from the beginning with that particular dream and kind of tell the story and walk us through it?
Okay, so I was drifting off to sleep just like normal, and I saw from kind of like a bird's eye view Jeep, green, and it was going down a highway, and it looked like it was probably around 80s or something like that, just by the way everything looked, and I kind of floated down into the Jeep. Again, I realized I didn't have a body or anything like that. It's not like that. And I saw in the back seat what appeared to be a woman, but I knew different. I was knowledgeable that was not a woman, but a man who identified as female, and I could tell that and feel how they were feeling. Again, there's no conversation that happens in these dreams. There's no speaking, no mouth movement, no words. I can feel everything they feel, and I can project my feelings onto them. And they would know what I'm saying. So as I see her looking out the window, and she's just contemplating and just feeling really depressed about not knowing who she is, and just trying to come to terms with it. Whether she's man, woman, if so, why born this way? Why does she feel otherwise? And I could tell that my role was to help her through this. So I, did this like I do in the other dreams. And again, there's nobody else in the Jeep that can see me, except for her. And, she knows that I'm not, a body or anything like that. But I could also tell that she knew who I was and I knew who she was. And the feeling I got was, this is me from another reality. Like I was this person as well. And, she was me too, from probably a past or alternate dimension is what I got the feeling of. So what I projected onto her was that, we're all the same. From things that I've been listening to in the spiritual community, I feel that, all of us are all connected to God, whether male, female, that's just a body. That's not who you are. Your spirit doesn't have a sex type.
Right.
And that's what I was in that dream, was my spirit. And that's what I try to convey to her in the message, is that this is just limited time on this planet. You shouldn't have to worry about that. What we really should, convey is that we all love each other. And, I just kind of focus my love and light onto her and just let her know that, hey, this is just temporary. It's just a body. And, we're all together. We're all as one. We're all part of God. We're all part of this universe. And, your anatomy doesn't have anything to do with that.
Right.
And she could feel that. Obviously there was more love in my message than what I'm speaking with my words. And I think that's why it worked so well, is because she could feel the love that I was saying. And sometimes those things can't be expressed through words. Maybe the closest thing we might have is a hug.
Right. Yeah.
But
I get what you're saying. Yeah. It's words obviously we use to express emotion, but it's not the emotion itself. So it sounds to me like when you became this this spirit form, or where you were just your spirit, instead of, like you said, using words to express feelings, you were feeling it. You were the feeling itself. You were just the embodiment of love. And that's what you continued to, give off and give her, so that she could accept who she is, no matter what kind of crisis she had going on internally.
Exactly. Like a spiritual mind hug,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah. 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 So that's really neat. Just to kind of put it into perspective a little bit for the listeners, explain a little bit more of the visual detail that you remember from this dream, so that they can see just how vivid this is.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could tell that, we're driving down a highway. As I mentioned, it was kind of like an 80s, early 90s kind of feel from the way they were dressed. The longer collars on her shirt. She had a jacket, black hair that was kind of, I don't know, maybe neck length, flipped out, like it was flat ironed. And I could tell she, wasn't, I guess, fully Caucasian. Maybe like a grandfather or grandmother might have been of some type of maybe Asian descent. I could just tell just within the eyes and facial features and cheekbones. And yeah, it definitely gave me just kind of like an 80s, early 90s feel.
Yeah.
To it. So it was a little bit, earlier than what we are in our time in this reality right now. And if y'all kind of remember 80s, 90s, the LGBTQ plus community wasn't as, accepting as it is now. So
Right.
It's very torn. And I say she because that's what, she identified as. But, as I told her, I was like, hey, I could tell that was me in a past life. And I'm like, hey, I'm you too.
Or an alternate life. Yeah.
Or an alternate life. Yeah. So, and that's kind of what I was expressing to her is, hey, I'm you too. And no matter what you identify as, you're human. We're all human. And,
yeah. And you helped
her,
her, right? Like that, if I remember correctly, like you said, you could tell that truly helped heal parts of her soul that was struggling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was, I know that worked. Just like I've had in the other dreams that, where I was dream walking or whatever you want to call it, that she was truly healed.
Yeah.
That she accepted the message, and it didn't matter what she dressed like or wore or how she spoke, who she was with, who she looked like, what she looked like, what she was, wearing or feeling at that time. She was healed. It was definitely like a healing touch. And I didn't mention this, but I was looking on the outside, but when I was conveying my message, it's like I went inside of her mind, like pushed my flow to her, like touched her and was kind of like one with her, if that makes sense, so that she could feel it. And that's what I did in kind of all of the other ones that I've had. The one we spoke about earlier on this, with talking the guy down from the ledge, it wasn't talking, it was like I went inside him, kind of like I was his his consciousness and or conscience, so to speak.
So do you think that she had to give you permission to enter her consciousness, or do you think that you already had that connection that she didn't have a choice but to allow it, or are you not sure?
It's a little different with each person, but with her, I had permission.
Yeah,
it was very welcomed.
So it does seem like they have control of whether they want you there or not, and in this situation, she allowed you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we can talk about another one too.
Yeah, we'll get to that one. That one's interesting too. I like that one
not so
too.
much.
So do you feel, I guess when you found her, when you were hovering over the Jeep, do you feel like you could have gone somewhere else if you wanted to, or this particular moment you were meant to go to the Jeep?
I could have went anywhere, of course, but I knew that was where I needed to go. It's almost as if you're watching a movie and you see one thing in focus and everything else is blurred out.
Yeah,
I could see other vehicles on the road. That wasn't the only one, but it's like that's where my focus was. I was supposed to go there. And when I went there, I knew I was supposed to go to the back seat, not the driver.
Yeah.
Which is odd, because if you're seeing something on the road, you're going to assume, hey, I need to help the driver. Maybe they're going to wreck or something.
You're right.
But I knew it was the person in the back seat that was struggling with themselves, and could have been potentially, suicidal. Who knows? But I could tell that she was deeply depressed and needed my help, and I knew that's where I needed to go. I felt guided to, and that was my purpose.
So a lot of people believe in the spiritual community, and everyone has their own beliefs, but I know from my research there's a lot of people that believe that when we connect to our guides, our spirit guides, our angels, our higher selves, that a lot of times that is who we are channeling, is our higher selves.
Yeah.
So do you feel like maybe when you have these out of body experiences that you are the essence of your higher self, and because your soul is the same soul of the people that you are encountering, it's also their higher self?
It's very possible. In this situation, I would say yes. But I feel like I visited people that weren't me as well.
Okay. So maybe maybe it's either, maybe in some situations you are your higher self and you're connected to another version of you because it's the same higher self, and in other ways it's you're simply just helping someone because you are in that moment a guide for them or an angel for them, or just something, some kind of light meant to shine and illuminate.
Yeah. That's something that I'm not 100% certain on. So I don't know if I can answer that 100% or not.
Well,
I just knew in this situation, yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe in some future,
Not sure.
in some future dreams, if you go, if you talk to someone else that is not you, maybe you can just ask them.
You brought up a good point. I will try and do that in the future. That will be my next focus.
Okay, so do you want to move into the story about the one that you're not as all the person doesn't always welcome you, but you do know you're connected to them as well. They're still your soul.
Yes, we can. And this will be, I guess, the last one of those types of dreams that we'll talk about. But because that's the, honestly, the last one I've really had for a little while now, because I've tried to go a different path. But yes, there was a man that I have sought out, and I knew that I needed to help him. His wasn't as much of depression as it was more of a bad, ominous type vibe when I went into the dream to see him. He was in a very wealthy, area. His home was very large, very modern looking. It was dark on the inside. Everything about it was very dark. And whenever I saw this person, it was always from the back. He would never face me. And that was part of the issue. It's like he always would be closed off and always knew that I was there. And I don't know, for some reason, it's like I need that in order to help him. And I can never see his face, but I can tell that he's done bad things that he doesn't want to come to terms with, and he doesn't want to, seek my help. I've tried to do multiple things to try and, or multiple attempts to try and help him, and I've gotten into his, dreams several times, and I felt the last one, he kept, I guess, just trying to look around me, if that makes sense, like with a mirror. And I don't know if he was trying to, avoid me or try and capture me or send me out, but I got this vibe that he wanted me gone, and he would do anything it took to get me out of there, because he wanted to stay in that type of, bad vibe or whatever evil he may be doing, or he was just too guilty to accept it. But that was the type of feeling I got from him, and I haven't tried to visit him since. Just kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies, but unfortunately, I felt like that was an alternate version of me as well. I felt like it was some type of past life. I will say that it was very modern looking. It may have been, I don't know, futuristic me, another universe, other dimension. I couldn't really see anything because his home was so dark and creepy. But so I couldn't put a date on it like I could with the last one. But it's just, he really didn't welcome my presence and didn't want to be healed. And I know that as bad as I wanted to, I couldn't do it. So I guess that goes back to your earlier question on permission. And I guess if you really didn't want me to, can't.
Yeah, that poses a really, because I mean, all of this is really just, subject to your own perception and your own opinion, because it's not like we have any real facts about what we're doing when we do these things. But it almost, I've heard that when we are in distress, our souls can send out a signal, to God, to the divine, to angels. And to me, it seems like maybe when we are asleep, and if our soul decides that it wants to leave our body, we can respond to these signals. And even though he's still surrounded in a lot of darkness, and he's unwilling to accept what he's done and face, you know, what he has done, no matter how bad it is. To some degree, his soul is still sending out an SOS,
Yeah.
and you're responding to it. And unfortunately, he's still very resistant to accepting, what's gone on. But at a soul level, he is asking for help.
Yeah. And that's kind of the vibe I got. It's like I knew, by some way that's where I needed to go. That's who needed healing the most at that point. And that's who I needed to help. But he was unwilling, and I couldn't persuade him.
Right.
I could force myself upon him or in any way.
Because it's free will, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I couldn't impose on his free will. Even though I know that that's what he needed. He needed that love and light that, to just enter his body and just help him feel, love.
Yeah, help him feel something other than the darkness. Because, whether you believe in, actual evil and demonic entities, or you just believe in more of a negative energy, either way, those things, the negative polarity exists. And, science has even proven that like attracts like. So if he's done bad things, if he's experienced a lot of trauma, if he's gone through a lot of things in his life, if he's, had an abusive childhood, whatever, it would make sense that he would be filled with so much darkness. And like you said, you could just see and feel the darkness, not only in him, but in his home and his surroundings. And unfortunately, that is not always easy to overcome. And those types of energy, they weigh you down, and they deplete you, and they make you feel hopeless and like you can't change. But even just shining a little bit of light in a dark room causes illumination.
Yeah.
And so I think that even though you didn't see success like you did when you helped the lady, I think that even just shining that little bit of love and light that you did in some way also helped this other version of your soul.
It did. And to go back, and kind of, I guess, further correct, what I was saying is it's not that he gave off the vibe that he wanted to be evil and do these things. The vibe I got is that he did these things and he felt like he couldn't come back from it.
Right.
I guess to further reiterate how it felt, it's like he was punishing himself almost, if that makes sense. Like, hey, I don't deserve that. I've done things. This is what I need. I don't need, I don't need light. He just felt like that's what he deserved. And, I couldn't project my feelings upon him because he wouldn't let me in, to let him know that, hey, everybody's done something wrong in their life. It doesn't mean you can't come back from it.
Yeah.
I think we all deserve a chance.
Yeah.
And, even if not in this lifetime, maybe in another. So
yeah. And I think we can all relate to that, where when we've been at our worst, and we've all had, moments of darkness where we are hard on ourselves, and we don't want to give ourselves, another chance, or forgive ourselves for the mistakes that we've made. And sometimes, depending on where you are in your current life and in your current, situation, it can be really bad. It can be really hard to move forward, and to see that you can move forward and you can be forgiven for what you've done, no matter, how bad you believe it was.
Exactly. So that's why I kind of stopped wanting to pursue that one.
Yeah.
You can tell it's not that I've given up. I feel like I need more knowledge on how to go about this, or maybe just give him time, or maybe enter in a different time period. Maybe later in life, he might give himself a second chance or be open to it. But at that moment in time that I entered, he wasn't ready. So next part, if you want to discuss that one, did you think that's ready, or should that be another episode?
Which one?
The traveling.
Yeah, let's go with it.
Okay. So after that, I kind of stopped visiting as many people. And like I said, there's more than just, I guess, the three that we talked about here, but those are the ones that stick out as vivid. So lately I've been trying to seek more, and I feel like I've gotten some level of success, but maybe not, because I feel like my ADHD brain just got really excited and messed everything up for me, because I didn't get answers that I wanted to. But I've been trying to reach the Akashic records to try and find out more about this, because the more I've looked up, and you've looked up as well, just to try and find similar dreams like this, that it's harder to get answers.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, where do you seek answers where all the information's at? So I did, kind of. I know that I've reached the Akashic records, and I did see an entity there, as a cosmic being. Again, I don't know if this is the same for everyone, but no words are really ever spoken when I'm in this dreamlike state, in this form. There's no words. It's always feelings, and those feelings come across more correct than any verbal aspect ever could.
Mm-hmm.
So when I reached this cosmic being, it was really neat looking, to be honest. It's hard to describe, but
give it a shot.
He was humanoid, I guess, in shape. Only saw really just kind of looked towards his face. I'm not scanning him up and down. I knew he was a higher being than me for sure, so I'm not giving him the full body check. Just trying to be respectful as possible and look towards what I would imagine are his eyes. But he looked very, very cosmic, almost like his body was see-through, but also like a nebula, if that makes sense. Star-like, like you would see in pictures of outer space. But that's kind of what I guess you would call his skin, kind of. But his skin would be clear, and that would be like his insides, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you could kind of see through him, but not, and it moved on the inside.
It's like he's the bubble boy from SpongeBob, but his insides, instead of being clear, are like a galaxy that moves.
Exactly. and it moved, except for his eyes. And he did wear a robe that was kind of I don't know, like a dark bluish, like maybe navy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, so when I reached him, I was, just kind of asking about, my dreams and stuff. And I was just wanting to know, how much of it's, kind of real. And I was asking, for some reason, a more recent dream that I knew was just a regular dream, or so I thought, was just kind of like this pretty place that I went into that kind of reminded me of something actually from a game, World of Warcraft. And he was, confirmed it by like showing me, hey, yes, places like that exist, and the nerd and the ADHD brain in me just was like, okay, well, what else, and it's like before you could even really convey it, it's like he knew and showed me. Mm-hmm. Everything was shown to me and felt to me, not spoken to me. Mm-hmm. No questions, answers, no Q&A, none of that stuff. It's just like I was there, just poof. Mm-hmm. And so
it's
obviously,
like your thoughts like materialized.
Exactly, my thoughts materialized, and he answered it. Mm-hmm. And so it was instant speed. No download time, no circle on a computer. It was just like boom, you're there. So naturally, with me being nerdy as well, I'm like, hey, elves, gnomes, dwarves, dragons, and I'm everywhere. And so, and then, eventually just woke up after that, and I never really got the questions I wanted to answered, but it was really neat that I was able to get there. And I hope to be, having more of these conversations, maybe another podcast later if I get better answers.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do a future episode of more of your dream journeys, because I know that you're going to have a lot more.
I'm certain I will. And, science has been talking about all those discoveries with time travel, multidimensional things being kind of confirmed through those molecules that, travel through time through our Earth. And it's really neat learning that those things really happen. And so I was watching that, and looking up that stuff before going to bed. And I think that's kind of why I was like, hey, with these multi-dimensions, what are these things, what are these are real? And that's why I asked that. And I didn't get the real tough questions answered like I wanted to,
I hear that's really common though, when people actually go to the astral realm, is that their mind just starts taking them to different places, because it's just, you don't have that waiting period like we do on Earth. We have all of these laws and all of these things that make us feel like we aren't cosmic, and we aren't as powerful and as we truly are. But when we're in the astral realm, we don't have those blockages anymore. So what we want, poof, it's there. Like, we manifest instantly. So when you think of something, you don't have a waiting period for it to come to you. It just exists.
Yeah.
And didn't you think when you first met him, you were like, well, where are you from? And so he like shows you where he's from.
Yeah. That was my first place, because I was like awed by how cool he looked, and I was asked where he was from. And then I asked all these other places. That's right, because that was my first train of thought. Obviously, my ADHD is kicking in on this podcast. I was, hey, dragons are real. That's cool, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I was like.
Were the dragons that you saw really cool, or were they really scary?
Both. I mean, it's like a dragon. That's scary and cool at the same time. But yeah, I mean, it's just, those things that everybody wants to, learn and think about. A lot of people that like anything, it's usually fantasy related. You see how often TV shows are watched and how many are nonfiction. Everybody wants to know if magic's real. So it was really neat to be able to kind of go to a place where it seemed like it was possible. Like there was elf-like creatures. So, part of me wonders if that's why we have these stories, is people visited those places in their dreams, and there's more to it than just, and that they had an idea.
Yeah.
That idea may have came to them from somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's all kinds of, speculation in texts and in history to point us to philosophers and scientists who, would astral travel and go to these other realms. I mean, there's people that speculate that Albert Einstein was actually communicating with extraterrestrial life and getting information from them, and just all kinds of stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me at all that all of these stories that we call fairy tales and we call myths were actually real alternate realities and alternate dimensions, and we have visited them in dreams.
Yeah. Very real. That's kind of what it confirmed for me, was my questions I had that day about the multi-dimensions, alternate realities, what existed, were kind of answered in a roundabout kind of weird way.
Yeah, and that makes sense, because that's what you said you were really, honing in on before you fell asleep, is you were just so amazed that science is actually starting to prove some of this stuff. So you were curious. You were like, well, show me more. And even though you had other, motives, deep down, that's what your soul needed answered.
Yeah, because I kind of wanted to know more about the dreams where I was visiting people, and kind of what the purpose was and what my purpose is, because every time I visit them, it's like I'm kind of like a being of light, like a ball of light that only they can see. And I'm wondering what I'm trying to do to these people if that's my purpose here, is to try and help heal them, So that's kind of the answer I wanted, but I got the other answers.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to share the one where you went into someone else's body and had an experience, and this time you weren't the consciousness, but you were actually them?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that one's actually kind of a very short one, but it was extremely vivid. I was a police officer, and I was trying to track down a criminal, I guess, for the lack of a better term. And I, he was armed and dangerous, and I was guiding. I guess I became him, but it's like I was guiding him in the correct path.
So kind of like you were like his intuition.
Yes, like I was his intuition. It's almost like I knew that if I didn't guide him, he would be killed.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of the, I guess, intuition that I had, was like, hey, I need to go, kind of guide him. And I could tell, he had a family you want to get back to, and things like that. It ended, successfully.
Yeah.
But it was really kind of neat, but also exhilarating at the same time. So I'm not a police officer or anything, Thank goodness for you guys. I don't have a life-threatening job at all. So
except for your astral dreams.
Yeah, I guess the guy
dealing with dragons.
Yeah, the guy in the dark room doesn't want anything to do with me. That's probably about as dangerous as it gets. But that was very exhilarating. Hats off to you guys. Risk your lives out there, because that was crazy. But I knew that in that dream, my purpose was to get him home safely, and alive. And all I did was just kind of directed him a different route. He was just going down this hallway, and when I entered him, I told him he needs to get back in his vehicle and go around the back of the building. And that's what helped him. If he would have kept going down the hallway, he was going to, it's like I knew that if he kept going down the hallway chasing after him, he was going to turn around and get shot. So when he went around in his vehicle and cut off the guy, trying to escape, he stopped him with his vehicle and had, something around him, to where he wouldn't get shot. And in doing so, because the officer wasn't alone, there was another person running, behind him too. So it's, just kind of flanked him and he gave up.
Yeah.
But that was my purpose, was to get him home safe. So, I mean, I feel like there is something to these dreams, those feelings people get when they just decide to change their mind on something. That's kind of what it is.
That's divine guidance. It's divine led. And
it is. It's divine intervention. And that's, I mean, I don't think I'm divine and, really more than the next person, but I feel like in this state, I do, and that's my purpose.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's not like you're Myles in their body.
No.
You are pure consciousness. You are just pure spirit at this point. You're not who you are in this earthly body. Thankfully, you can come back from these memories or from these experiences and remember them.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure a lot of people have these experiences. Unfortunately, they just don't remember them. And thankfully, you have been able to bring those back with you. And I think that is also for a reason. And it's probably more, the reason's probably more about your current purpose and what you're supposed to do in this lifetime, and how this is supposed to, really help you and shape you to complete who you want to be and fulfill this life. But when you're that spirit, you're not Myles, you're your spirit, and you're someone's consciousness, you're someone's intuition, their higher self, their protector, whatever you need to be.
Yeah, Absolutely. Because that's one of the things is like in each different one, it's different feelings I need to project.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's acceptance, self-worth, or just guidance. It's usually different with each one. Each person needs something else to help them in that moment. And that's just kind of what it is. So now in my current life, I definitely pay more attention to any type of, conscience, if you will, or divine intervention, or just forethought, something interacting with my life, and say, hey, maybe there's more to it.
Yeah, just it goes to show you, everybody, you should trust your intuition.
Yeah.
If you get a gut feeling telling you to do something or not to do something, you should listen, because it could save your life.
Yeah, it sure can. And I feel like it feels a little bit more than just you second guessing yourself.
Yeah.
They knew that it was something that they should do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of work around understanding your intuition versus your ego, because it's really hard for us sometimes we second guess ourselves. We always question whether we're right or wrong, and is this truly intuition or truly divine guidance, or am I just making it up? Am I playing tricks on myself? And from what the research that I've done and my own experience is, ego will make you feel rushed and scared. Intuition and divine guidance will make you feel sure and absolute and calm and comfortable, and you just know. It won't make you feel like you absolutely have to do this, or there's going to be some crazy catastrophe. Even in intense situations, you still will feel more of a calming presence, or a calming knowing that you just know this is what you're meant to do. And the reason I believe that happens is because when we have intuitive feelings, we have divine guidance, we're our spirit, whether it's coming from a higher version of ourselves or it's coming from an angel or outside source, they're not afraid of death, because to them death doesn't exist. Death is just going to be us being reborn. So they wouldn't have anything to fear.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly right.
So do you have any of your own personal stories where it was maybe your intuition or your consciousness telling you to do or not to do something, and you listened and it was good, or maybe you didn't listen and it was bad?
Not that I can think of right now. Nothing quite that divine. Not that I can think of at the moment. But I'm sure there probably has.
Yeah. And now that you're
I'll say that.
definitely paying more attention to those, I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll definitely know when they come in next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably with some type of car wrecks or something, I'm sure, something. But not that I can think of, and I'm not gonna ever try and say anything that I didn't experience.
Oh
So,
yeah, of course.
but no, I can't think of anything, but I'm sure it will at some point. Sure.
Yeah, the only
I'm sure
story
everybody does.
the only story I have that I can like remember right now without really having to try to think about it was a couple years ago. I was on the way back from taking my daughter to a dance, and it was really dark, and I was on these roads I just wasn't familiar with. There were back roads, no lighting, and I just kind of zoned out. I don't really know why I zoned out. I wasn't tired or sleepy or anything. I didn't fall asleep. Like I just, you get into that state where everything's familiar and you zone out, and I zoned out big time. And I don't know how long I had been zoned out, but apparently during this zoning out moment, my foot was on the accelerator and I started going pretty fast down these back roads. And as I approached this intersection and where cars were also coming up and I needed to stop, I had a extremely loud voice in my head that screamed at me to stop. I mean, it wasn't my own voice because I was zoned out. But if I wouldn't have stopped, I would have went through the stop sign, and I don't know what would have happened.
Wow. yeah, stories like that happen all the time. So I believe that happens.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's more people that have dreams similar to me, and maybe this podcast helps them come out and talk about it, because that
Yeah.
would be nice to have more of these exact type or similar type dreams.
Yeah, if you have stories like this, feel free to email them to me at chasingspirituality@yahoo.com, because we would love to hear about them, because we both have done a lot of research, and we
Mhm.
have not found anyone that has had dreams and experiences that are this specific. Maybe, the astral travel, that maybe, but not where you are literally just a spirit and you enter someone's body to give them guidance and support. We haven't found anything like that in our research.
No, and I didn't go into great detail because I didn't want your podcast to last forever. But I mean, everything's so vivid in these dreams. It's not blurry like, a flashback in a movie or anything like that. It's not like that at all. It's just like being real right here, right now. It's if I wasn't conscious, kind of, and aware, then I could assume that was real life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a little different than just a normal dream. I knew that it was different. And obviously I didn't have a body too, which usually I have one of those in a dream. Try and walk around, or, if I'm lucky, you can fly, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But you usually have a body because that's what you're used to.
Yeah.
Not just a floating little light ball. So yeah, if anybody else has a dream like that, that would be pretty nice to hear. But I feel like somehow that's my purpose, is to try and reach people through that method, to try and help them in that way, whether it's this reality, another one, another dimension, or wherever I'm traveling. I know that these people need help, and I feel like that's might be what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I would say put on this earth to do, but that's not exactly where I'm at.
Exactly.
And it's not exactly me in this body. Me in this body, I know that I'm not perfect or anything like that. And I don't have that gift, which would be really cool. To just project feelings onto people and just make them feel better. That would be nice. But that's not how it works. And I unfortunately don't get to choose the people to do it to. I'm guided to them. If I could, I would choose, people I know, it'd be very limited because I'm limited to who I know.
Mm-hmm.
But in this realm, in these dreams, I'm guided to the people I need to be helping.
Yeah.
And it's shown to me. It's not something I choose. I don't know these people. Most of the time, I don't ever get their names. I just, know who they are, and I can feel their depression or anxiety or anger or sadness, just whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's what I identify. It's like I feel their vibration, their soul. Everything is feelings, never words.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anybody else out there? Let me know. Email her. Chasing Spirituality.
Yes. And we will definitely do a future episode as Myles has more dream journeys and can share more with us.
Thank you.
Wait, before you go, I want to share how you can receive a free reading with me. Listeners of the podcast, if you go and leave me a review on Apple and then send me that review to chasingspirituality.com, you can get a chance to win a free reading of your choice. This can be psychic or mediumship. Once a month, I will choose one of the listeners to receive the reading. And I won't pull your name out of the drawing until you're chosen. This will help the podcast grow, but will also allow me to give back to my listeners. Hope to hear from you soon. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you love. And it would mean so much to me if you could rate, review, and subscribe so that the podcast can reach and assist more people. Until next time, I'm sending you so much love.